Dr. Stephanie, what's your thoughts on melatonin supplements for sleep and to aid with the mitochondria? Dosage, long-term use.
Oh, this is such a good question. So, melatonin is actually one of these compounds that we used to think was just like for sleep, right? It's like the hormone of darkness. I wrote about this in my book. I actually call it like for people that will get my humor, I'm like, hormone of darkness, no affiliation with Darth Vader, but how cool would that be if he was? So, melatonin comes out when there's no light. Okay. So, the absence of light. And we thought for forever that it was just this thing that initiated sleep. But we know now, I mean, it's a hormone of the pineal gland. It has been shown to have numerous protective actions, right? So, and particularly as Vesa has correctly said, with the mitochondria. So when we think about what it does, it has been it, and actually before I even kind of go into what it does,
Yeah.
really importantly with melatonin, it's formed in the mitochondria, and the mitochondria has melatonin receptors. So this is a really strong argument for melatonin as being a very powerful antioxidant, because when we think about all the other vitamins that have been touted as antioxidants, like the vitamin A and C and E and all this kind of stuff, they can't actually get into where it counts, which is in the mitochondria, to be able
Mhm.
to, scavenge free radicals and all that kind of stuff. So melatonin is, and I'll talk about the cellular defense system in just a sec to um, answer her question. But melatonin, for my super nerdy betties, down regulates activities of nitric oxide synthases, of astrocytes, and the microglia in the brain. So we've talked about the brain before. We think about like, what's the brain cell? It's the neuron, right? So the neuron is the cell in the brain that kind of communicates. This is what it talks through action potentials, it's electric signaling. But what actually outnumbers neurons in the brain is the immune cells in the brain, called the astrocytes or the microglia. These are like the pool boys, right? These are like the
Mm.
landscapers of the brain. So they will clear out like old dendrites and like neurons that are not working properly. And so they'll clear it out. So we always have like new, fresh neurons. But when you are stressed, your astrocytes can also go a little bit nuts. So they can actually start clearing out neurons that are actually really healthy. So melatonin can downregulate the astrocyte and microglial activity that's unnecessary in the brain. And of course, again, this is for my nerdy betties. I'll put this in the show notes so you guys can follow along as well. But it will reduce electron leakage. So in the mitochondria, we have something called the electron transport chain, and there can be periods of opening in the mitochondria where you can get these electrons that are kind of leaking out, right? So they will reduce that. They will, like I said, scavenge free radicals and increase levels of antioxidants like glutathione, which is the master antioxidant in the body. So melatonin, super duper important. So I was talking about the antioxidant system before, how it actually there's receptors on the mitochondria for melatonin, that melatonin can actually be produced de novo within the mitochondrial cell. It also does something called autophagy and
Mm.
mitophagy. So autophagy,
Yeah.
you're familiar with. We've talked
Yep.
about this with fasting, right? So
Yeah.
like when we break down the word, aftos is the Greek for self, phagos the word for eat. So you're eating, it's like you're eating yourself. This is basically like consuming the cells that no longer are serving you. So in the same way that the microglia, the astrocytes in the brain, can kind of gobble up all the neurons and the dendrites and all the pieces, the bits of nucleotide and all the stuff that's floating around, cellular debris that we don't need. Autophagy does the same thing. Mitophagy, same basic process. It's just localized to the mitochondria. So melatonin regulates autophagy and mitophagy. Um, and it also builds this antioxidant defense system. So this is one of the newer functions that, as we are having a better understanding of mitochondria, we know that every single night when you sleep, the cellular antioxidant system is going to be regenerating. It's going to be replenishing the supply of antioxidants like the glutathione and all that stuff for the next day. So when you don't sleep enough, when you're not getting good sleep, what happens? You don't have enough of those
Right.
antioxidants, right? So you're not scavenging those free radicals, and now your mitochondria, these battery packs, these powerhouses of the cell, they're getting damaged as well. And of course, when we have enough mitochondria, when we accumulate enough mitochondria being damaged, then the mitochondria essentially sends out like a distress signal to all the other mitochondria that's like, we're under attack. So they stop making ATP, they stop making energy, and they go into this like defense mode to protect them because they're like, this is a threat. We gotta get out of here. And that's, the chronic accumulation of that is where we get chronic fatigue syndrome, where we get fibromyalgia, we get burnout, we get all these um energetic deficiencies. So it's really important for us to be thinking about proper sleep, and that's where melatonin comes in. And of course, the big problem with melatonin is that we have this modern world that's like perfectly designed to destroy it, right? Like we wear
Mhm.
sunglasses during the day because we want to air quotes protect our eyes,
Yeah.
which is like ludicrous. Always like unless you are looking at the sun, you don't need sunglasses. Or maybe when you're skiing or something, you need sunglasses. But
Yeah.
we wear sunglasses during the day, and then at night we're bombarding our eyes with this blue light from our devices, from our phones, from our
Mhm.
TVs.
Mhm.
And what happens is we have this area in the brain. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's like the circadian biology regulator. It's like the master clock. So this clock tells your body when it's daytime, tells your body when you're sleeping. If you are putting blue light, so blue light from computers, blue light from your phone, from your devices, and lights are on in the house in the evening when it's dark outside, it's sending a daylight signal to your brain's like, oh, it's day.
Yeah.
And that will inhibit melatonin.
10 p.m. last night, I was texting talking about how my deep sleep has been disruptive, and I was like, maybe that's because I'm shoving blue light in my eyeballs
Yeah.
right now as I complain about my deep
As
sleep
I
and all that's
complain
going
about
down.
sleep, I'm like in front of my phone. But you're not the only one. It's like,
Yeah.
and I sometimes I catch myself doing it too. Like that when I
Yeah.
got engaged, I was like, where are you? I'm up,
Yeah.
like we didn't sleep that night. So the release of melatonin actually depends
Mhm.
on the absence of that light. So it depends. It's like that's why I call it the hormone of darkness, no relationship to Darth Vader, but
Yeah.
it's the absence of those specific wavelengths. It's the absence of the blue light. So